Nothing like this report has ever been published.
It's really a tour de force covering everything from dairy's negative effect on athletic performance to its history of exploiting and targeting athletes, its cozy relationship between the US government and the dairy industry, and the industry's disproportionate targeting and sickening of people of color.
What I'm struck by all this is the role that inflammation plays in many of these chronic diseases, and dairy being a very pro-inflammatory compound.
The vast majority of the professional and amateur sports world still believes that dairy does a body good. And I simply can't stand that.
Dairy is not health food. That has created a lot of confusion in athletes and the general population.
The athletes training under the US Olympic Committee are inundated with milk marketing, not science.
When they come in to see me, I'm telling them otherwise because the dairy is causing them a lot of harm. They leave confused because they're getting conflicted information.
Our Dairy Does a Body Bad report is combating milk and dairy marketing with science.
People have been fed one-sided information for so many years.
Dairy is the single largest, most subsidized food product in the country today. It makes most of us sick, and that it's been linked to everything from asthma to breast cancer.
I mean, there's very clear evidence that dairy consumption contributes to asthma in both children and adults. It's diets that are high in saturated fat, which are associated with asthma. And what's the most common source of saturated fat in the standard American diet? It's dairy. So, this idea that dairy is somehow some kind of a performance enhancer, it's a great recovery drink, is just false.
What does your food eat? This is what is allowed in the feed of animals like cows. Meat meal, meat and bone meal, poultry meal.
Now, if you think about the human body as a house, we have different rooms in our house, right? So we have a brain room, a gut room, a joint room, a skin room, respiratory room.
Eat byproducts, dried animal blood.
And when we fill our house up with angry people and strangers wander into the house, it's not a good outcome.
Blood meal, feather meal.
So they come in the thyroid room, you get thyroiditis. They come in the brain room, you get multiple sclerosis.
Dying and diseased and disabled animals that are ground up and then added.
Where are these angry people coming from? It's the highly inflammatory Western diet.
Animal waste, so that's ruminants from their intestines, feces.
You kick all those angry people out and replace them with people listening to Mozart and drinking green tea.
And many, many more.
If you have a kiddo you're like, oh, sure, Dotsie, let me just give him a bowl of kale and say, have at it.
Our 5-year-old daughter has been eating kale since she was 3 years old. And we just do it in different ways. You can blend it up in a soup. You can do it many different ways when you're messing around with taste, texture, and temperature.
Tofu is something else you can sometimes give to kids if you hide it well enough.
Right, a lot of the focus is put on milk, but really what cheese and ice cream are is just you take all the fat from milk, you coagulate it together, whether you're adding a bunch of salt or you're adding a bunch of sugar, and you call that cheese or you call that ice cream. Just adding and compounding the deleterious effects of milk.
Studies have shown that dairy is the most commonest causes of the inflammation that we encounter in the esophagus, which prohibits individuals from being able to have normal swallowing. I'm diagnosing so many athletes who are consuming whey products, whey protein powders. I ask them to go on a strict dairy-free diet, and indeed, their problem resolves.
And again, I see it every single day, frankly. People having dramatic improvement in these chronic autoimmune diseases after they transition to a plant-based diet.
Now, whether you have been dairy-free for your whole life or today is day one in that journey, we need to continue supporting each other and keep this fight as vibrant and visible as possible.
You all need to read this scientific report and really get the word out there and really say, whoa, we need to make some drastic changes.
I'm going to challenge you to think of just 2 people that you can definitely send this report to. Just 2.
Are there any other referral sources or other myth-busting sources, besides, of course, switchforgood.org, that you would recommend?
Well, I was going to say that I heard there's this great report coming out that needs to be shared with everybody.
Dr. Sadeghi, would you mind jumping in? If you wouldn't mind, sorry, Dr. Sadeghi, would you mind going off mute, please? Thank you.
I always tell myself, don't forget to unmute, and I always forget.